Thanksgiving.
Lies.
Total sadness.
Oh, that's a horror. Horror beyond measure. Terrible, brutal, atrocity, massacre.
There was a massacre. Puritans came and slaughtered them. They didn't want to eat with the savage. They slaughtered millions of us.
Folks, is it time to cancel Thanksgiving? Is it time to decolonize your evil turkey dinner on Thursday? Well, of course, most normal, mentally sane people would say no because they are normal and mentally sane. But as American society begins to decline in many ways, so do our values, right? And what you are starting to see is not just the rise of miserable and unhappy people, but actually the giving of a platform, the giving of the power to implement ideas to those who are miserable, unhappy, and very oftentimes literally mentally ill. Right? Because no healthy society would look at miserable people and say, I want you to be in charge of me, right? You're not even living your own life in a very healthy way, but I think we should listen to you in terms of the prescription of how to live all of our lives, right? But of course, as our society is no longer healthy and no longer normal, then that, of course, would probably be too much to ask. So today, I mean, maybe that intro was a little bit unrelated or it seems out there, but the point overall here is that there is a growing movement of people and, you know, a select handful of Native Americans out there claiming we need to decolonize Thanksgiving. And you have this article from The Nation that we're going to react to later in the video that says, should America keep celebrating Thanksgiving? Sean Sherman argues that we need to decolonize Thanksgiving, while this other guy calls for replacing Thanksgiving with a truths giving. So I think you basically get the idea. All of this stuff is ridiculous. Can you just shut up? It's Thanksgiving, okay? You know, I think we really do need to be responding like that more often. I mean, we can have the political debate about the origins of the holiday and Native American history and all this stuff, but you know, seriously, I think we need to start incentivizing people to shut up for 2 seconds, including about the politics, and just act normal. But regardless, we're going to talk about that all here today. And I found a wonderful video. All right, it's a little bit older of a video, but it's called Thanksgiving Native Americans One Word from the Cut. And basically what they did is they interviewed this select handful of Native Americans. I'm pretty sure they're a hand-picked group here. And they asked them, what do you think about Thanksgiving? And listen to these responses. It's many of them are quite deranged. Let's take a listen, and we'll kind of go through, and every single one, I guess I'll pause and break it down. So check this out.
Thanksgiving.
Lies.
Okay, so, you know, right off the gate, I'm going to tell you what I was thinking when I first saw this, okay? I'm not saying it's true, but we can't lie. Everyone had to first look at this video and say the first guy they put here on the camera, is this guy actually Native American? Okay? Yeah, you know, is he part of the Elizabeth Warren tribe? And by the way, I'm not saying he's not, okay? I'm just saying you can't lie. That had to have gone through a lot of people's heads, you know, and maybe he has some Native American ancestry. Does he actually live on a reservation? Or is this some guy Okay, but anyways, right? You get the point I was making earlier, right? Forget, lies, whatever. Just talk about a miserable person. All right, anyways, let's get into this here.
Sadness. Total sadness. Thanksgiving is a time when my family gets together and tells stories about our creation myths and who we were and who we are and really what we lost.
Inaccurate.
Again, you know, I could argue the political points, but screw that. If you're spending your Thanksgiving being sad, all right, it's supposed to be a time of happiness. Hey, you know, you've seen your family probably for the first time in a while, blah, blah, blah. If you're just going to spend it walloping in misery, and frankly, that's how a lot of these people live their entire lives, I once again ask the question, why should they be taken seriously, right? But, of course, our society enjoys reveling in depression and sadness and mental illness. So I guess it's not surprising. Okay, let's continue here.
Garrett, I like the overall idea of Thanksgiving, but not where it actually comes from.
Turkey and white pilgrims. I don't know what the first Thanksgiving was, but I thought it was a group of happy pilgrims and a group of happy Indians cooking turkey together.
Family.
Okay, well, at least some of these people are just kind of like, okay, yeah, maybe I'm Native American. I have these grievances about history. Many of them are hundreds of years old, and frankly, it's time to just get over it collectively. But all right, I'm not going to sit here and be an idiot like that on camera. It's about family, whatever. We get the idea, but that's how this goes, right?
Family.
Watch football, overeat.
Warm.
Okay, at least a lot of these people are more normal.
Faithful.
I don't really celebrate the holiday for like what it actually is, more of like just getting to have family over and eat. Colonization.
Fair enough.
I think it is
Colonization. Okay.
important to give thanks and to have a day for that, but maybe the history of why we celebrated it in that certain way is more complicated.
Oh, that's a horror.
It's a horror
beyond measure.
Thanksgiving is a horror beyond measure. Gosh.
Terrible. Brutal. Atrocity. Massacre.
That's actually how I feel. I think that's how a lot of people feel with their leftist relatives, when they come over at Thanksgiving and won't stop talking about politics. That's actually how I feel. Horrible, awful, terrible, atrocity.
There was a massacre. Puritans came and slaughtered them. They didn't want to eat with the savage. They slaughtered millions of us.
That's not even true, by the way. That's not what the Puritans, or actually the Thanksgiving is about the Pilgrims. That's not what the Pilgrims even did. Okay, so that's just not true.
I don't know why they call themselves Puritans.
Romanticized. Well, I would definitely say the story of Thanksgiving and coming together is definitely romanticized because of the horrible atrocities that were committed against us.
Thanksgiving.
What's wrong with the idea of coming together and just celebrating? What's wrong with that being romanticized? Aren't all holidays and all celebrations of things that are good romanticized in some sense? Isn't it normal to romanticize things that are good and happy? I don't see the issue. Oh, but Native Americans. I don't even understand the point there.
Just to me, just means a day for football and lots of good eating, and trying not to think about what it really represents.
All right, so there you have it, folks. Just wanted to play that there in the beginning. Let's get here into the article, because this is really where I want to get into the substance of all this stuff, okay? So this article from The Nation, should America keep celebrating Thanksgiving? I am a proud member of the Oglala Lakota Nation, born on the Pine Ridge Indian Reservation in South Dakota. Okay, so keep that in mind. He is a Lakota Indian, which we've covered on this channel. You look at the history there, if you want to talk about massacres, and I'm not saying him, but obviously you want to kind of do the grievance history, the collectivist history here. You're to blame for the acts of your ancestors. It's important to point out the Lakota were a war tribe, known not just for conquest, but atrocities, war crimes, crimes against humanity. You look at the history, the Black Hills that they claim were stolen from them by the Americans. They literally stole from the Cheyenne before, and even the other Indian tribes used to fear them for, being the most brutal warriors, killing women and children, the ghost dance, all that different. So just going to point that out here. And by the way, again, it's South Dakota, so this tribe has actually nothing to do with the original Thanksgiving, okay? Again, I'm not holding that against the guy who actually wrote this article, obviously, because it's not his fault, but just keep in mind, if we're going to make this argument about historical grievance and stolen land and massacres and all this stuff, and you're going to attack the descendants of Americans, like modern Americans, for that, I think that's just worth noting. Anyways, he goes on to say, my memories of Thanksgiving are akin to those of most Americans. meat and potatoes dishes inspired by Eurocentric 1960s era cookbooks. Okay, well, no one's forcing you to eat that, but fair enough. All right. For many Americans, the image of Thanksgiving is supposed to be one of unity, the gathering of pilgrims and Indians in a harmonious feast. But this version obscures the harsh truth, one steeped in colonialism, violence, and misrepresentation. Okay, I think a lot of holidays, their origin is somewhat misrepresented. Like, who cares? We're celebrating a modern holiday here, but whatever. Okay, by exploring the indigenous perspective on Thanksgiving, we can not only discern some of the nuances of decolonization, but gain a deeper understanding of American history. The sanitized version of Thanksgiving, of course, the sanitized one is the one where you just gather with your family and eat and, see people you haven't seen for a while. Okay, but the sanitized version of Thanksgiving neglects to mention the violence, land theft, and subsequent decimation of indigenous populations. Which, by the way, has nothing to do with the Pilgrims or the original Thanksgiving, but fair enough. Needless to say, this causes tremendous distress to those of us who are still reeling from the trauma of these events to our communities. You are not reeling from the trauma of these events. The original Thanksgiving took place in what? The 1600s? I'm still reeling, okay? We wake up in South Dakota, far away from New England. We wake up every day as Lakota Indians in South Dakota, and we're still reeling to this day from events that took place around 400 years ago. I'm sure, every single day you wake up traumatized. Oh no, those events that never even happened to me or anyone that I know is living today. Get over it. Okay, seriously. But anyways, Thanksgiving's roots are intertwined with colonial aggression. One of the first documented Thanksgivings came in 1637 after the colonists celebrated their massacre of an entire Pequot village. Which, of course, you notice he says one of the first documented Thanksgivings. So you mean not the first Thanksgiving? Anyways, I do not think we need to end Thanksgiving, but we do need to decolonize it. That means centering the indigenous perspective and challenging the colonial narratives around the holiday and every other day on the calendar. All right. So, keep that in mind. If you are not decolonizing your Thanksgiving, you're an evil person here, okay? How dare you not sit around every Thanksgiving as you eat turkey and talk about the authentic histories and decolonization. Okay, anyways, decolonization seeks to honor indigenous values, identities, and knowledge. This approach is one of constructive evolution. In decolonizing Thanksgiving, we acknowledge this painful past while reimagining our lives in a more truthful manner. I say once again, folks, you may wonder in this video why I'm not really responding to the substance of their argument, because it's Thanksgiving. You guys are just being ridiculous. Okay, who sits around and does this and talks about this, okay? But you know what? At least this guy, he does say, this Thanksgiving, let's break the bonds of colonization and capitalism. Not just on our plates, but in our perspectives too. All right, but at least you could say that guy, even if he wants to make Thanksgiving some type of sad and pathetic apology for American history, at least the guy does say, yes, we should celebrate Thanksgiving. Take a look at this guy who says, no, we should just not celebrate Thanksgiving at all, okay? And, he basically goes on here to say, you want to give thanks? Give thanks to native nations who granted settlers some form of legitimacy by entering into those treaties, recognizing them to be in our homelands. These treaties recognize that Americans are now under our spiritual custody and have rights to pass through our country. Okay. All right. If I were to give thanks, I would also give thanks to, the settlers and the Americans who actually built the society we lived in and oftentimes, brought the Christian faith to this continent and brought, civilization in many regards and, ended things like the ghost dance and ritual human sacrifice, but whatever. As soon as Americans were able to impose their will on indigenous nations, the treaties were violated, blah, blah, blah. So, he basically just... Do we even have to read all of this? Okay, I think we basically get the idea here. The central argument is instead of making Thanksgiving a normal holiday with family and giving thanks. We instead need to have this very ridiculous conversation about colonization and settlement and conquest and colonialism, which, you know, again, part of the reason I'm so dismissive and I'm ridiculing this so much is because while there is perhaps a political and historical debate to be had about that, just keep it out of Thanksgiving. Okay. And again, it's like, I feel like by giving these people any credibility in terms of, okay, yeah, let's spend our Thanksgiving dinner talking about this. Like I said in the beginning, you are normalizing and giving a platform to simply miserable, unhappy, and very often mentally ill people. But still, regardless, if we are to have that conversation, you know, I don't think anyone denies that some atrocities were committed by settlers and colonists and, you know, Americans and British and all. Okay, no one denies any of that. At the same time, I think what that conversation ignores, if we are to talk about it honestly, is the fact that equal amounts of atrocities and massacres of innocents and etc. Were committed by the other side, right? The Native American side. And of course, the conversation also ignores the fact that if you are to truly talk about the history of the American continent, it is completely historically illiterate to claim that, oh yeah, the Native Americans were all just living in peace and then all of a sudden these white people came over and conquered. That's of course not true, right? You look at the history of this continent and frankly most of world history. Like I have brought up with the conversation about the Lakota, the natives were all conquering each other too. They were constantly engaged in warfare and violence, and the only difference is suddenly white people did similar things and then won the war, right? Won the conquest, and then now suddenly 400 years later, we have to, you know, apologize collectively as anyone who lives in this country, even if they're not white, for that history. It's all just kind of a ridiculous conversation. You know, we'll talk about it at some point on this channel, and we often do. Okay. But like I said, this Thanksgiving, my argument is not that you should even talk about the flip side, talk about the benefits of the American settlers and colonists and actually the fact that they built what was at least at one time a very great civilization and the one we now all enjoy the fruits of today, right? We don't live in the fruits or the product or kind of the work that was built by Native American civilization. We live in the ones that the, you know, American colonists and settlers built. Regardless, I'm not even going to advocate for that today. I'm going to say, enjoy your Thanksgiving. Don't talk about colonization or decolonization on it. Just be a normal, functioning, mentally sane person. How about that? With that said, folks, let me know your thoughts on all this stuff in the comment section down below. Be sure to leave a like, subscribe if you are new. Have a happy Thanksgiving, and until next time, Alpha Moves Only. God bless. Have a very good day. Peace.